Welcome back to the wonderful corner of my life that we have been sharing here. A little bit of fun slash background information for those of you interested, keeping track, or just, wondering. Today we get to break like 100-ish pages in the book covered so far. The book as is 395, so you're about, quarter of the way there. Part of that is because I have knowingly been editing a few chapters out just from, like feedback I've gotten or, my editor taking a look at it. And just self editing. And that's also kind of where I'm at right now is trying to figure out what else is going to get cut. But as of right now, what I am presenting to you is just not much cut. So I'm kind of doing this not only as a share project, but as like a self-edit project of just what am I going to do when this is all done and I figure out what I'm going to, end it as the published book. I also note that, yes, 395 pages sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot when I wrote it, and I was like, good night, who's going to read this? But I also have like tons of photos and scans in the book, so really you could shave like almost 30-ish some odd pages off just because it's all photos. Anywho, today we get to dive into everything that leads up to tour. And for me, that's a lot of fun because, this first part is teenagers just being teenagers and having just adventures and trying to figure things out and just the everyday things that we would do that just you look back on and go, huh, okay. And I get to end today's reading with us getting on planes and flying to Orlando to be at Disney World. And it's really hard to top any sort of memories being forgotten when you are 15 in Disney World for 5 days with a batch of your best friends and then the thing in high school you love most of all. And my dad. So, anyway, that's where we are for now. So, let's get kicking. Those crazy nights, I do remember in my youth. I do recall. Those were the best times most of all. Adrian called me the night before she left back for Kansas. Coronation had been a gift to her, to everyone. But now it was all coming to an end. I'm afraid everyone's going to forget about me, she said, beginning to cry. Once I leave, life will go back to normal for everybody. Maybe they won't ever miss me. Oh, that's not gonna happen, I assured her. Ellie and I talked all the time after you left, and she was so sad without you here. Every day at lunch, I walk out to the beach club, and I expect you to be sitting there with Emily and Meg. And in biology, I still think you'll be sitting next to me. And then when Emily says world history isn't the same without you, we think about you every day. And that doesn't count when I get to school at 6 a.m. and I'm sitting there waiting for you and Jeremy to show up. Still want to hang out with you like we did when you were here. And it sucks that I can't. I don't forget important things. You are a very important person to me. I won't ever forget you. After she went back to Kansas, Adrian and I would continue to call and write each other for the rest of sophomore year and for years afterward. She asked me not to forget her, so I never did. I had thrown myself completely out of worrying about the drama from one side of my social sphere and just into enjoying my time with the Stars group. Blaine and Aaron began to date, and I made a point to have a heart-to-heart with Blaine. With everything that happened with Katie, I needed his assurance that there'd be no pattern to his previous behavior. He knew and expected me to be protective since Aaron had such a close relationship with Emily, Meg, and Adrian. One day, After school, we all decided to go watch movies at Blaine's, and after a stop at McDonald's and a coffee shop, Meg, Corey, Aaron, Blaine, Xandar, Emily, and I invaded his house. Tammy joined us for a screening of Evil Dead 2 and Scream. It was there that our group, well, more accurately, Meg, Emily, and I, started becoming open with showing our affection for each other. We all three clumped together on the couch, cuddling, watching Bruce Campbell chainsaw off his possessed hand, laughing. We might hold hands or give each other a kiss, and we'd spend hours on the phone with each other. We became a very affectionate trio and weren't afraid to show it, and tried to make the understanding that if emotions got involved, we'd talk about it. Because, traversing teenage emotions and hormones can certainly be tricky, and as a little makeshift friend/family group, the last thing we wanted to do was hurt each other. I knew I had a crush on Emily, and I found Meg to be just absolutely amazingly cool and attractive. But I also didn't know exactly how they felt about me. I did, however, get the impression that even if they weren't looking just for that full-on dating thing, relationship, that comfort and friendship and just hanging out and having a good time, that was always in the cards. And we would continue like this for a few weeks. Talking on the phone, hanging out after school, having movie days at Blaine's. I remember the running joke during a movie. We'd randomly shout out, "hand check," to make sure that, all was above board, and close for laughs. However, one time, Blaine called for a hand check, and Emily and I had been holding hands under a blanket, so as our hands shot up, everyone laughed. After all, it did look a little suspect, but nothing had been going on. That same night, I ended up riding around in Meg's car with her and Emily climbed in the back seat, and, we made out a bit as Meg drove around, and the night ended with a bit more of us just hanging out, talking, kissing each other goodbye. After driving off Emily, Meg dropped me off at the townhouse, and after we talked a bit and said goodnight, we had our own kiss goodnight. I went inside and journaled about how much I had found myself loving my time with them. This was just beyond hormones or angst for me, and I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, they felt the same. I also started spending more time talking to Aaron and Corey on the phone or after school, gaming with my brothers, and I continued to write Adrian. Everything seemed to be headed in the right direction, and we would laugh and enjoy anything that came our way. When the guys would hang out, the girls would come to visit us, and on one night as the guys ran to get food, we passed the girls on the way to the house to hang. So I leapt out of the Geo and dove into the back seat of Meg's car, across Emily, Aaron, and Corey's laps, and we all let out a laugh as Meg followed Blaine around. We all got food and then went back to Blaine's for movies. We were just a collection of kids who always seemed to be around their favorite people. I know I was. There's even a photographic reminder of this happy time, and of me and Emily. That is one of our favorite pictures. Aaron snapped the photo during one of our hangouts after school in the auditorium lobby. Emily and I look, as she said of it once, like a 90s ad for something about happy teens, and I love it. We're hugging each other, looking at the camera. We're all smiles. It perfectly captures just how we were. Most of our friendship, but especially right there in that specific frame of time, smiling and loving our time together. And here I was, a guy who considered one of his best friends his queen, and himself a wannabe knight in denim, all the while really happy with how life was. I absolutely loved our roller coaster of a group, and was more than happy and humbled to be along for the ride. Every time we're down, you can make it right, and that makes you larger than life. On Saturday, February 26th of 2000, Downbeat was asked to perform the national anthem for a state basketball tournament's final game, so we all met at the school to practice. Blaine and I, as was custom, arrived together and early, followed by Diana, Laura, and the rest of the choir. peppering in over time. Blaine and I had grown accustomed to keeping our distance from Katie, who hadn't given up on her chances with Blaine, which made things both slightly weird and also humorous. Things between her and I had become testy because when Katie would badmouth Aaron, I had, without hesitation, stood up for Aaron. I had drawn my lines in the sand and no plans on switching sides. Downbeat did a couple run-throughs of the anthem as we got ready to leave. Wendy told us where to park at the venue. We all piled into assorted cars. Blaine and I in the ever-present Geo, and the choir took to the freeway. As Downbeat caravaned to downtown Phoenix, we got into a makeshift race. Blaine put on some of his Backstreet Boys, and we waved as we blazed past Katie and Pam, and as we closed the gap to being in front, we inched up on Wendy. "Slow down!" she yelled out her window as she rolled it down. We turned the music up and zipped right past her. Within a few minutes, though, she came roaring back, but now she was all smiles zooming past us. Maybe, just maybe it wasn't the smartest thing, teenagers racing their choir teacher, but we were too young to know it, or even care. Blaine and I pulled into a parking lot. Wendy was right behind us. "What kind of driving was that?" she asked. We turned down the Backstreet Boys song, victoriously blasting over the car radio. "I'm sorry, what was that second place?" "Goof Troop, I swear!" she exclaimed, shaking her fist in jest. "The race-winning, song-singing, very good-looking baritone duo," Blaine declared, patting me on the back. After our performance, we all got back into our cars, and Wendy gave Blaine and me a playful glance. "We're not racing back," she said. Before we could react, she pulled out of her parking spot out of the lot and headed towards the freeway. "Oh, hell no," Blaine said, starting the car. I was halfway out the window, laughing and shouting, "Follow that car." After chasing sunsets, one of life's simple joys is playing with the boys. Excitement for the Disney World Tour had continued to build, as to be expected amongst a small army of teenagers. Along with students being tasked to work on raising the money for them to go, we also undertook a series of assorted fundraisers to try and offset the cost. Early in the year, those consisted of coupon books that we would sell that had page after page after page of coupons for assorted shops and restaurants and services. This was followed once winter hit, we began to sell musical CDs, but as spring break came about, it was decided that we would set up at gas stations all around Ahwatukee to do car washes. The idea was at the end of the day, all money we were going to be able to collect would be brought together, split amongst all of the choir students going on tour, just, a way to keep things fair for everyone. As groups were made and destinations given, Blaine, Xandar, and I were more than happy to be together for this, and we were joined by Katie, Pam, and a few other members of choir for a 4-hour block of time in the late morning/early afternoon. After a wild time that resulted in money-making and laughing, Wendy had reserved a park area where all of us sun-baked and soaked kids could blow off some steam. As we sat and ate, a volleyball game broke out, and Blaine and I not only found ourselves on opposing teams, but regaled in the competitive spirit between us as brothers. I was joined by Katie, Pam, and others, while Blaine and Xandar had a team of his own. "Hey, Shorty, are you even tall enough to play?" Blaine asked, adjusting his sunglasses. "I don't even think you're strong enough to get it even over the net there, bro," I fired back with a smile. "It is at this time that if you would like, you can go ahead and insert your own version of, a teenager Top Gun beach, volleyball marathon here." The game went back and forth, both teams cheering as points were scored and groaning as hits were missed. As a volley got underway, the ball came my way, and surprising my brother, I leapt into the air and spiked the ball over the net, it landing just out of reach of Blaine as he dove for it, giving us a point. "Geez, Blaine, if you were a little taller, you maybe would have been able to get that," I taunted. I turned around to my applauding team. I took a bow, and as I stood up straight, everyone looked at me with a look of surprise as I noticed the volleyball hitting the ground and rolling away. I looked around confused, and I could hear Blaine behind me. "How the hell did you do that?" he asked as Katie grabbed the ball. What do you mean? I asked, turning around and then noticing Blaine standing just a foot or two behind me now on our side of the net. Blaine threw the ball at the back of your head at point-blank range, and you ducked as he let go, Pam said. I grinned. Must have been my kumbaya sense tingling. Blaine gave me a playful shove. You fucker. After winning the game, I sat with Xandar and Blaine on one of the pieces of playground equipment to get a bite to eat. The three of us brothers planned a video game day, what we looked forward to at Disney World, and the group of girl friends we looked forward to making memories with. As we did, we noticed a camera pointed our way, and like the three goofs that we are, we struck a pose and smiled. It's one of my favorites ever. I'm lying in the rain, but I never wave bye-bye. But I try. I try. In a bit of an honest realization with my feelings, I had become very aware of the fact that my crush had evolved. And being a young, hopeless romantic, I would cannonball right into loving people. I didn't guard my heart if I felt a certain way, which, in hindsight, was very dangerous for my heart. But I also never wanted to shy away from telling people how I felt about them. And in a group where affectionate hugs and kisses were the norm, I knew that what I felt for Emily was different. She was more than a friend for me. This was more than a simple crush. I loved Emily. But the hardest part was figuring out how to tell her. As February came to an end, I talked to Meg about how I was feeling. We talked about what this would mean going forward for our group of friends and our trio. I felt like I needed to get it out, and I felt comfortable opening it up to Meg. She was really supportive and offered to help in getting me ready to tell Emily. This meant a lot because I had a hell of a lot of affection for her, too. When the moment came to tell Emily how I felt about her, the three of us were hanging out at her house, and I cannonballed. May gave us space, but was there for my moral support. So, I started, I need to tell you something because I want to be honest. Okay, Emily responded. Alright, so you know I've had a crush on you for like a year. Well, the thing is, those feelings have gotten stronger, and I've fallen in love with you. Emily was caught by surprise, and I continued quickly. I'm not trying to rush anything, and nothing has to change if you don't want it to, and I sure as hell don't want things to get awkward, and I know it's a lot. Whatever you say, if you don't feel the same way, I respect it. I can't say I feel the same way right now, though, but if dating is in our future, we'll talk about it, but I don't want you to worry, she replied. Matt, you're one of my best friends, and when I hurt you, I feel like I would hurt myself, and things won't be weird. The last sentence was punctuated by her smile. After we talked, nothing changed within our bigger friend group or in our smaller trio. Meg, Emily, and I would still hang out, and even the very next day, she invited us over to watch The Last Unicorn, and we had pizza. We cuddled together throughout the movie, and when Meg and I left, Emily kissed us both goodbye. Meg and I went for a drive afterward, talking about how it went, and I felt like it went as good as it could have. That getting it out there was the most important thing. We left each other with a kiss goodbye and looked forward to tour. The three of us would continue on with whatever we were, even with my feelings out there. It still seemed like it hadn't made anything awkward. One day, while it was just the three of us eating at Emily's, she mentioned something cute she wanted to do at Disney World. I think it would be cute to do a little kiss in front of the castle on the choir tour, she said. Huh? I asked. I think it would be cute to do like a little Tinkerbell pose or something and kiss in front of the castle. I'd love to do that if you wanted me to, I replied. Let's do it, she exclaimed. I was happy to see how excited Emily was, a bit of an ego boost, because that would mean it would involve kissing me. And if we were going to do it, why not in the happiest place on earth? This was the kind of thing our group did. The idea of Emily and I as two friends who wanted to make a memory at Disney World, even one that many would see as romantic, just seemed natural to us. The displays of affection were just part of the dynamic of the group, and I could differentiate between that and romance. Or so I thought. The seemingly mutual understanding Emily, Meg, and I had about our affection shifted just a few short days later. On a rainy Monday, Meg, Emily, and I were hanging out in the backseat of Meg's car. Emily cuddled up against Meg, and they both were playfully kicking at me from across the back seat. We were soon joined by Aaron, who was waiting for Blaine to finish a choir council meeting, and everyone was flirting, as we often did when we were together. I popped out of the car to throw something away, and I noticed that the flirting between the girls seemed more deliberate. When I came back and opened the door, I took them by surprise. In doing so, I saw the trio exchanging kisses. "What the heck is going on?" I asked, and they froze. My hormones regretted getting out of the car when I did, but the more rational side of me had a feeling that something was just not right. I knew what it felt like to have a friend betray me, so I didn't want to stand by while it happened. My friend. And the mirrors of what happened with Katie and Blaine wasn't lost on me. "Okay, hold on. I need to tell Blaine," I said. I closed the door and went between the two portable buildings off the parking lot and at the beach club for a minute, trying to figure out what the right words were to this. As I did, I saw Emily and Aaron get out of the car and walk towards the school. They hadn't seen me sitting on the table watching the rain. Meg saw me, and she got out of her car. "What's going on?" she asked. "Okay, hold on. If Aaron and Blaine are dating, I don't know if they'll have the same understanding as we do with this kind of thing," I said. "And if they don't, then they need to figure that out." "But you saying that you're going to tell Blaine," Meg began. "I'm not going to be the person that keeps this from him," I interrupted. "I'm not, okay? And you and Emily, well, we keep sending you signals," Meg interrupted, basically pointing out what my hormones had been yelling at me. "I should have stayed in the car." "Yeah, I know, I get that. I'm still trying to figure things out, okay?" My brain was running a million miles a second, and I knew that I could have just interpreted everything. But in that minute, I was upset. Meg stood there as Aaron, Blaine, and Emily came out of the school. Aaron and Emily had already started to explain things to Blaine, and Blaine seemed to understand. "Okay, they told me what's going on," Blaine said. I could still feel myself angry. Worse, I may have overreacted, which also meant I was embarrassed. But I was still feeling like something was wrong. "Aaron and I will talk it out. I'll give her a ride home," said Blaine. "Great," I said. It was time for me to go. I grabbed my bag and started to walk away. "Matt, don't you want to talk about this?" Emily asked. "Nope, I'm good," I replied, my head screaming at me to get out of there. "Matt, how about a ride home?" Meg asked. "It's raining." I turned and glared at Meg. I was still angry, and even though she looked like she wanted to talk, I was in no mood, and at that moment, I didn't see any difference in what she had done and what Blaine had done to me. "I don't want anything to do with you right now." I knew my words stung Meg, and I don't think it was lost on anyone else there, but at the moment, I needed distance from everyone. My emotions were high. I felt like my senses of logic and emotion were at war. I was starting to doubt that I could handle any sort of fluid affection that our group had. I was upset. I was confused. A bit embarrassed. So I turned away. If they tried to call out to me, I didn't hear it. I walked home in the rain, leaving the four of them behind. Getting home, I walked upstairs to my room, shut the door, put on the radio, and started writing Adrian. I was retreating into myself, my brain and heart still conflicted with what happened now and how I had reacted. I didn't think I was home all that long when I heard the phone ring. I heard footsteps and then a knock on my door, and I opened it. "Hey, kid." I didn't know your door was closed, and I flashed the mat signal. "It's Meg," Dad said, holding out the phone. "Thanks." I took the phone and walked into my room. "Matt," she began, her voice shaking. "Really not a great time," I said abruptly. "I need you to listen. I didn't know Aaron and Blaine were like totally exclusive, and we were all just caught up in the moment." Her voice was full of remorse, but I wasn't in a merciful mood. You helped me tell Emily how I felt, and I thought I could trust you." "I know," she said quietly. "Listen, Meg, it's really cool we met. It's been nice getting to know you and stuff, and I was looking forward to hanging out with you on tour, but I don't know. I know you aren't looking to get into a relationship right now, but why would you mess with someone else's? You know, Aaron is dating Blaine. You've known my feelings for Emily, and I've tried to be cool with whatever is going on with you and her and me and everyone, but after this, I can't trust you. I just can't. We have the same friends, I get that, but this is not something I need." I was furious. I was hurt. I was still trying to figure out why I was. I wasn't even sure of myself. And I was lashing out. There was silence on the phone. And then I could hear Meg start to cry. "I'm sorry, Matt. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I really didn't. Not Blaine or Aaron. Definitely not you. I was hoping to get to hang out with you more on tour because I've liked getting to know you too. But I understand if you don't want to now." When we hung up, my heart sank. If there's one thing that gets me every time, it's seeing someone I care for in tears. And the only thing worse than that is knowing I'm the one that put him there. And I knew what I had done was fucked up and unfair to Meg. "Well, fuck," I said out loud. I instantly felt guilty for my reactions to everything, and I knew I had to talk to Meg. So the first thing I did next morning, when I had the chance, I caught her in the hallway at school. "I'm sorry," I began. "Whatever happened yesterday, that was me working through whatever I needed to, and it wasn't fair for me to say what I said. I overreacted, and I'm still working through some things, but it still wasn't fair." I told her I would love to spend time with her on tour, that I wanted her and I to be okay. Meg wasn't the only one I needed to talk to, and the two of us found Emily at lunch and we talked. We didn't want there to be anything negative hanging over us, and to the credit of the affection that we all had for each other, by the end of the day we had all put the thing behind us. As we moved on, we happily looked forward to both Emily's birthday and the day we were leaving for tour. And tour? Tour would change everything. Leaving home, out on the road. I've been down before. The day we set off for choir tour, my mom dropped my dad and I off at the airport in the early morning. Upon arriving, we lined up alphabetically, which put me and my dad next to each other, with Cara W. on one side and Emily on the other. It also happened to be Emily's birthday, so a few of us brought cards and offered to buy her something from Disney World while we were there. Since we were all smiles and ready to go to Florida, we took the opportunity to snap a few photos of the airport. One of the pictures of Blaine, Zan, David, Eric S., and I is what I like to call Pure Denim, which would be an awesome band name. We were all standing around in jeans and t-shirts, Zan with a jean jacket and me with a button-up denim-looking shirt, an outfit that perfectly displayed my style at the time. It was my way of still being a bit of my 80s me with an updated twist. The jean jacket stayed retired, though. Choir, band, and orchestra were all getting checked in for the 4-hour flight to Tampa. The plan was to then take an hour-and-a-half bus ride to Disney's All-Star Music Resort in Orlando. Blaine and I hit the airport gift shop to grab our early morning soda and get in a few jokes before being separated to board the plane. Choir Council handed out folders with itineraries for the weekend with jokes and fun little anecdotes of each choir person on the trip. I read the one they wrote about me, and it said, "Strains of Kumbaya waft through the corridors as Matt Wentz waltzes down them." So, just for fun, I did that just to see if I could get a few laughs. Wendy went over what to expect for meals and room checks. Since it was day one, it was a travel day. The next day would be a park day, followed by the choir competition. You can be at the park when it opens and park hop during the day, but be back in your rooms for room checks each night at 10:30, Wendy explained. She also gave us a few specific times to meet for our giant group picture, but as long as we were in groups of 2 or more, we had 5 days dedicated to enjoying the park and making memories. On the plane, and to the eternal gratitude of his son, my dad switched seats with Emily. So, her and I could sit next to each other and chat through the flight. We planned our picture in front of the Sleeping Beauty Castle the second day we were going to be at the park, and agreed that after the giant group picture might be the best time for it. We talked about movies, school, her being in Shantae and me in acapella and downbeat, celebrating her birthday with a trip to Disney World. Here I was, headed to Disney World with friends and sitting with the girl who meant so much to me. What more could a guy want, right? The excitement of the trip continued to build, and for a massive group of teenagers, we were, pretty well behaved. We touched down in Tampa around 4 that afternoon and boarded the buses to our hotel. The fine arts teachers set it up so that the 2 choir people would room with 2 other people from band or orchestra, a fun way for the different groups to interact. Blaine and I were going to room with Michael Z and Lawrence Y, 2 guys I had known from my English class freshman year. As we got to the hotel and the buses parked, Blaine worked on getting his bag down and told me to go ahead without him. And as I stepped off, I immediately heard someone call my name. I spun around to see Erin, in tears, walking up to me. I noticed Meg and Corey behind her, and with Blaine still on the bus, I walked up to them. "Erin, what is it?" I asked. "It's Katie." As Erin and I stood there, Blaine came off the bus, and Meg and Corey walked up to him, which I believed to be to tell him what was going on or that Erin needed him. Erin and I stepped to the side as everyone unloaded from the bus. "What happened?" I asked. "She's just been mean. She saw me on the bus. She said she was going to try and get Blaine back. She didn't really care about me, or he didn't really care about me. Just kept saying stuff like that the entire time." "Okay, all right." I was pissed. We'd been in Florida for just about 2 hours, and as soon as I stepped off the bus, it was back to whatever these shenanigans were. I hugged Erin. We'd call each other big brother and little sister before this, and I could feel that protectiveness starting to come out. "Blaine's coming over. All right, it'll be fine," I said. Erin nodded and gave me a hug as Blaine walked up. "What is it?" Blaine asked, still trying to comprehend what was happening. "What's going on?" Erin moved to Blaine, and I was scanning the crowd. I was looking for Katie. As soon as I could see her, I looked at Blaine. "I got it." I made a beeline for Katie, passing through Pam and Jen K and Miriam. I was not in the mood for discretion or candor, and as I walked up, Katie smiled. "Hi, Maddie," she said. "No, Katie, seriously, what the fuck?" I snapped. "I can't even get a bag off of the bus before I find out that you're going after Erin." "Maddie," she began. "There's no Maddie here," I interrupted angrily. "This needs to stop. I get it. It's hard to get over Blaine, but I had to get over you. You can do it. I am not going to let you take it out on Erin." I was maybe inserting myself where I didn't need to be, but at the time, I really didn't give a shit. Katie could be territorial in her pursuits, and now it had hurt another friend. I may not have wanted to deal with her drama, but if it meant to not be directed at anyone else, then so be it. You want to complain to someone? Fine. I'll be the one you can complain to, but you need to leave everyone else out of it. I felt like I could feel just Pam and Katie, or Pam and Jen and Miriam just staring, but I didn't care. Katie looked at me with a pout, and I turned and walked away. "Kumbaya," I muttered. After Erin talked to Blaine, she'd calmed down, but I could see he was now ticked. It had just been chance that Blaine and I had been separated from Aaron, Meg, and Corey on the bus, and Katie with them instead, and it had already caused a problem. So, after we got our room assignments and everyone was making their way, we walked the girls to their rooms. Since calls between rooms were allowed, we planned on calling each other to talk, plan the following day, and say goodnight. I said goodnight to my dad as we passed him on the way to our room, where we met Lawrence and Michael there, and I introduced Blaine. Since we didn't share any classes that year, it was nice to catch up with old friends. Before room checks, Blaine and I ran to check on Aaron one more time, and when we got there, we saw Meg and Corey as well, saying goodnight, and then swung by to see Xandar and David, who were rooming together. It was there that Xandar revealed he had forgotten his ADHD medication, but it's okay, everything should be fine. Blaine and I knew that this fact alone would make for a very interesting trip, and then ran to find sodas, finding them in a convenience store in the hotel lobby. Blaine grabbed his Dr. Pepper. "They don't have root beer?" I asked. "Wait, how?" Blaine responded. I don't know," I said, buying a Coke instead. "Better not jinx this whole damn trip, though." Blaine laughed, but there was a part of me that was serious. In all of my dorky glory, I had certain things that were standard, comfortable, and traditional. We got back to the room, and my dad stopped by for a room check, excited to be at Disney World. He said goodnight, went about the rest of his room checks, and we cycled through the TV channels. When we came upon Radio Disney, all four of us burst into laughter at the incessantly repeating commercial. It featured a dorky father with a goofy expression on his face every time he looked up from a newspaper at his kids. I can't explain it. It just cracked us up. "He's going to be our new best friend on the trip," Blaine said. We all turned in for an early night because our call time for breakfast was 6:30 a.m. We were planning to go to Animal Kingdom the next day before our performance of the tour competition. We called the girls to say goodnight before turning in. "Is Aaron okay?" I asked Blaine. "Yeah, but I need to talk to Katie. She can't be doing that." "Yeah, that was wild," I said, and then grinned. "Hey bro, are we cuddling tonight?" "Maybe tomorrow," he laughed, turning off the light. I whispered, "Promises, promises." And with that, me and my motley crew are in Orlando for Disney World and the 30-something odd god-awful photos that I have collected over time from that trip. This trip, it's just one of those. You get all of your teen drama and fun and absolutely great memories all wrapped up into one. And as I mentioned in the book, I was just humbled and honored to be along for the ride. And we start that tour with the next reading in Animal Kingdom. And me and Blaine are on a mission for my mom. So until then, thanks again for watching my mutterings and meanderings and memories. And, as always, be good to yourself. Listen to some music. And keep on rolling.